All right. Hi, Phil. How's it going? Welcome, welcome back, I guess, sort of.
It's a
um,
pleasure, Anthony.
I want to
It's
introduce you to everybody because we're animators and nobody in animation is generally famous. Um, but I want you to read your IMDb and correct me if any of this is wrong. I don't know if you've ever gone through it, but it says you worked on, and I don't even know what this is, Alias the Jester.
yes, that's it. You want me to tell you?
Is that a TV show? Oh, it is a TV show. And
Yeah,
then the
it's good.
BFG, and I've seen that. American Tail. Uh, well, the second American Tail. I
Yeah.
I had thought you worked on the first one. I kind of like the second one better because Don Bluth doesn't have much of a sense of humor, and I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's a bit
Okay,
on the side, yeah.
not to
I
go
mean,
on a tangent. Final
correction.
Goes West is a little bit of a fever dream, but the last 10 minutes is a magnificent film.
Yeah.
I just like to
Yeah.
say.
I don't remember it that well.
Oh, you know, okay. It's part of my childhood, so. And Danger Mouse, which I actually think is pretty cool.
Oh, it's
I
got a
don't think most people in the US know what Danger Mouse is, but
another
I caught it a
another
couple years ago.
another TV series. It was the same people who were same studio as Alias Suggested.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And a
Count
very
Duckula.
hungry caterpillar and other stories.
Yeah.
Count Duckula. Is that right?
Yeah.
Count Duckula.
Yeah.
Okay. I looked that up. It was okay. Had some cool animation.
That was
ABC
fun.
Weekend special. We're back. Was We're Back done in the US?
No, it was in London,
Oh,
Amblin. We
was
have
oh, okay.
a studio in London.
The World of Peter Rabbit and Friends,
Motif and stuff.
Transcenders, the World of Eric Carle,
Yeah, this
Philadelphia.
yeah, he's an illustrator. I can't even remember what the
Well, it
project
has
was.
the picture of the Hungry Caterpillar, so I'm
Oh,
assuming.
of course, no, it was the children's books, Eric Carle. Yes, I'm sorry, I was getting
Okay.
confused with another author and illustrator there. Yeah, the children's
Uh,
books, they're quite famous in the UK. I don't know if they've been.
the Hungry
Oh,
Caterpillar is
yeah.
it's pretty big. We have like actually quite a bit of his books.
Oh, okay, yeah, they're great for kids. We had loads of them.
Philadelphia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, it's Latin for cat or
Oh,
feline.
okay.
That was a
Um,
German production, actually,
it's oh,
which
okay.
was
So you're
so
still in
weird.
Europe.
We got everything in German, and we had to animate that, lip sync to German
Is
actors
oh, that's interesting.
who were
Uh,
cats.
um,
Strange film.
I'd like to check it out.
Yeah, it's good.
Is that still in Europe for that production? I'm
Oh, no,
assuming.
no, worked. It was all remote, most of the work. Well, it actually was for a studio in Dublin, actually. They'd been hired to do a section of it. Can't remember
Okay.
exactly how much, but yeah, I was working freelance at that point.
And then it says Pocahontas. So is
Yeah,
this the transition over?
pretty much, yeah. Right away, transition to
Okay.
Disney.
And then that is in Los Angeles.
Yeah. No, Orlando, Florida.
Pocahontas was in London.
Hang on. No, Florida. The main production was, yes, in Hollywood,
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, but they'd just established their studio in Orlando, Florida. Um, and so there was we got a big section of it to do there. So that's where I was working. They asked me originally when they hired me, they said, "Do you want to work in Los Angeles or Florida?" And it was like, I don't know, Florida seemed exciting or interesting. We had little kids at the
Hmm.
time, so it seemed like a good idea and a good move, and it was. It worked out well.
Yeah. Um, can you move a little closer to your mic? I feel like it's a little bit.
Oh, sure. Hang on. Okay, is that better?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just having a hard time hearing a couple of words.
As long as we're not doing a visual, because you know my great big ugly mug stuck in there.
Okay, so yeah, you did. So that makes sense now. So Pocahontas was outsourcing to the Florida studio.
That's right.
Gotcha. And then Mulan is
No, that was all. That was entirely done in the Florida studio. I guess the Pocahontas was like a test to see how the pipeline worked, how everything you know
okay.
production, the logistics.
And then Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah.
and that's your last. Is that your last 2D film?
It was, yes.
Crazy. That's crazy. So I'm just gonna run these off: Van Helsing, Harry Potter, The Golden Compass, Chronicles of Narnia, Terminator: Salvation, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Rango. Rango's rad. The Avengers, Edge of Tomorrow, Paddington, The Legend of Tarzan, The Mountain Between Us, Deadpool 2, Detective Pikachu, Don't Look Up, and White Noise.
That's right.
Really? Okay. Some of
That's a
those are
lot.
a little bit surprising.
Well, you don't get to choose your project for the most
Well,
part.
it's just that some of them are like visual effects, like straight up, like
Well, a lot of them are. I mean, if we were involved in those ones that appeared to be purely visual effects, it was because there would have been some element of animation. So the animation crew may have been a bit smaller, so it wasn't exactly creature or
okay. Oh, I'm just saying it's like
character animation.
realistic animation. That you
Pardon?
know, it's just that it's like realistic animation, not really cartoony.
Oh,
That's just
yes. But
surprising.
well, that was the way it went. I mean, at the start of the effects, there was a lot of animation that was required, character animation in particular, that was required in VFX production that attracted a lot of 2D animators to the studios.
Okay. I
And
mean, I understand like Pikachu and Paddington. That makes sense.
yeah,
But like, it's like
but
white
even way
noise.
back, that was the first 3D CG production I worked on, which was all dinosaurs.
We're
That's what they
back.
needed. They needed animators to not way back, sorry.
Oh, dinosaur.
Dinotopia. Not dinosaur.
Dinotopia.
Jesus Christ. I can't remember what.
I know. I
I'm
know.
gonna have to edit this.
I think I remember you told me dinosaur, and I don't think it's showing up on this list. By the way,
I'm trying to remember what it was called now. Maybe it
it
was
is
that.
dinosaur. That's the Disney one, right? Where they I remember when that came out.
No,
It's kind of a
dinosaurs. No, that was the Disney one. That was much later. It was in. I think it was called Dinotopia. It's a bizarre name.
so
Because you made
Dinotopia
it
is a book series where humans live alongside dinosaurs.
right.
Is that
Okay, so
is that,
you're familiar with it. Yeah. Well,
oh, you did do Dinotopia.
yeah. Then that was it. Then we did a.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there's a
was under
Disney.
I was thinking you did that Disney dinosaur thing where they took footage.
No,
Okay. Yeah, no, I
no.
have a
But
bunch
we
of
did
art
the
books.
dinosaurs we did for Dinotopia. Then I keep saying maybe it's because I'm getting confused with some other with a
That's
what's it?
okay.
So I'm not sure. It seems like
And it was a
100.
TV show, right?
It was, and it was pretty long, and it was pretty high, production
I
value.
remember wanting to see it and it was never at the right time.
Yeah,
I ended up recently buying some art books from that guy because the guy's amazing. The painter
no, I'm
who
not
did all the
familiar.
concept for okay. So he did all the covers for the books, but did a lot of this other extra concept art, and it's so amazing.
Yeah,
Um, I don't want to read those books because I don't know if like it's gonna ruin it. I love looking at those images and the story that's into my head is so awesome. I'm like, you know what? That's cool because I'm gonna read this and be really pissed. Or maybe it's amazing, but I might be missing out. But it's
well,
cool to look at, and I kind of don't want to ruin that.
it was it was an odd story in a way, like, it was as, Imagine If concept.
Oh, really?
A lot of the dinosaurs were very intelligent, well, they developed an intelligence, and they could talk and do stuff and basically behave
It,
and live alongside humans on an equal level. But then the
I
weird
do.
thing was you had these, very sort of like intellectual, you know, dinosaurs, but mixed in with these brutish sort of like brainless tyrannosaurs who all they did was stomp around and kill and eat things. So,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
Uh, Land Before Time kind of did something similar.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
I guess
I
that wasn't your thing at the.
I didn't watch it, but yeah.
I was. I guess it shows our age difference. I had to be like. I think it came out when I was born.
No, you were obviously a real, animation fan. I mean, I
Uh,
was as a kid, I grew up on, like TV cartoons and, watching Disney movies and so well, actually not watching Disney movies because they weren't available. We didn't have VHS. It sounds like we're talking like 100 years ago, but it was if it was available on TV, yeah, we'd watch it, or it was on in the cinema, yeah.
yeah.
So that was how it. And I didn't really get that familiar with or that closely familiar with all the Disney and classic animation until actually I started working at Disney, and I got more
Oh
familiar with
wow.
it. and probably at Amblin as well, because obviously there was an influence there. But prior to that, not really. I mean, I had managed to get a copy of The Illusion of Life, the Disney book. Um, that was when I was still working in TV animation. So yeah, I was getting okay. I'm going back now. Yeah, so I was getting more familiar with Disney, and I think that was my sort of like journey in sort of like learning animation. It started at after I left school, after I left art school and into TV animation, and that's how I really started to study animation, and slowly evolved into an interest in Disney because I obviously realized that was like the gold standard that you had to aim for.
Yeah,
Uh,
at
so
least it
that
was.
progressed, and that again though was almost all literal. So it was like from books. Um, any videos at that time, yes, you could. VHS did exist then, so. So yeah, I was watching those too, but not so much the movies themselves. I think it was any other animation I could get my hands on, I was probably getting more interested in.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
just like everything. I wasn't particularly, I guess I grew up during the Disney Renaissance. So,
yeah.
um, that's going to be a big
Oh, like
part of
when
my animation journey, but it's not the only thing.
oh, like from, um
Well, I was born in 88. I think that's when Little Mermaid came out.
yeah, I was just gonna say Little Mermaid was when they really sort of like turned things back around.
Yeah. So I think I kind
Completely.
of grew up with that on that
Yeah.
crest of that wave. But,
I
you
think that
know,
was when the animation department managed to reclaim some status there and got their building back. And I don't know whether they got the original building. I mean, because originally they had like specific offices that were for Disney animators. And I think when it went into decline, they were booted out, and it was like executives moved in there, and I think they were kicked into some. Yeah, they were put in some temporary accommodation, which was pretty basic. And I think once they'd reestablished themselves as a, going concern, a real animation studio, yeah, well, not a real animation studio, but I think you know where I'm going. They managed to get that building back or get some status where they got a proper facility to work in. So it took that Little Mermaid success to do that. Hello? I think we've lost connection.
okay, everybody. Just to let you know, we had a disconnection there, so we're kind of starting up. I don't know where we were last,
Well, I can tell
but
you, just cut out all of the waffle I did about Little Mermaid, that's all. Because I had the sense that you disappeared, so I started just jabbering on about.
I wanted to actually sort of change direction. I'm not change directions, but I want to sort of take this in a direction that's use. The reason I started this podcast is sort of create a resource for people like that are in animation to kind of give them like an insight or what to look for, how to navigate the career. Everyone's going to look a little different,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I am focusing a lot on indie, even though you had a full career working for the big guys.
Hmm.
But I do, for the people who do wanting to get jobs in the industry, I kind of want to go. You mentioned looking, hiring people, and I'm not sure how often you have done that. I want to know, and I want people to know from your perspective, what is looked for in an animation reel, whether it's
Okay.
2D animation or it's 3D.
Well, I haven't done a great deal of hiring. It was when we were first setting up the studio in Montreal for Framestore, and I was tasked with going through a lot of reels, and yeah, a lot of junior and or student reels too, to try and hire, get a team going. So I guess what we look for. How can I put this? It was like an expectation from perhaps a student reel or somebody with very little studio experience is essentially overall what I'd have been looking for would be something that was a little more adventurous in the work that they were doing. For sure, it's good to have what the industry expects, the kind of work that you'd be going into doing, depending on whatever studio that is. If it's like a VFX studio or an animation studio, or even an independent production, you'd have to research essentially the kind of work they're doing. Oh, and I mean, it's difficult then to tailor a reel to be specific for a particular company. Um, so in that instance, it's always good to try and keep a good varied selection of work on a reel. when you don't have a lot of industry experience, display. I think it's you're trying to um, display an artistic curiosity, a passion for animation, a passion for movement, storytelling in the best way that you can. And I think any recruiter who's looking at something that's being presented by a student would bear that in mind. They don't expect something, or they shouldn't expect something that's highly polished and sort of like, industry level work. But what it should do is show that you have an ability or a passion to actually explore. And essentially that in the detail of your work, which is important. Sorry, I'm getting off track there. I'm trying to fight with this echo that I keep hearing.
I'm not picking up
All
on
right.
it, but maybe you'll hear it when they edit it or something.
That's right. I think if you're aiming to get a reel together that's going to appeal and cause interest, again, I think it's a variation of work. I try not to be too centered on one specific style or genre of animation, if that's possible. I know everybody ends up with their own particular style and
Right.
way of drawing and or producing animation.
What about the things that are actually, rather than the style, what kind of things put in it? Like, are you looking for like acting shots, action shots?
Well,
Does it look bad when people have like what seems to be a demonstration? Like,
one of
oh, this is a guy dodging arrows or whatever.
one of the things that I saw a lot of, which I think was an expectation as well, there's been, a lot of students were given this expectation that they had to produce something very realistic in terms of, even if the character was essentially an animated character, you could see that it wasn't pretending to be real life, but it was an animated character. It was designed in that, not necessarily cartoony, but what they've been doing, and it's still done now in animation courses, is they take a piece of dialogue from a movie and then they reproduce that with their animated characters. And often it's just an animated version of the real life piece of acting. And it demonstrates an ability to observe and understand the movement. And it can be very well animated. So that what you do get from that when you're viewing a reel like that is that you see, okay, I understand that this person understands how to make a character, a human, move. They understand the movement that's involved in that because they've observed the weight changes and the shifts that go, the subtle shifts that go with the piece of acting. So that tells you that, somebody's, a competent animator, but it doesn't give you really much idea about their creative spark, their inventiveness. And that's what something I was looking for. And I saw a lot of reels with that kind of dialogue tests in which said, okay, this person can animate and they understand that. But then what made a reel stand out is if amongst all of that, there was something quite different. It could have been something that could have only been done in animation, which is something I always used to look for, and I think anybody would look for. Not something that could be done in live action. And that's where, like a VFX studio will rely on that. Somebody who can then animate something that they just can't shoot. Or if they can, it's going to involve an awful lot of, I don't know, technical trickery or whatever. But if you can animate something that they otherwise couldn't shoot, then you're proving again that you have an ability to imagine how something works, and or you may have used varied reference in order to sort of like pull that together. So if you found that in reels, which is what I often did, if I looked for that and found it, it would cause an interest. Then if it was something that couldn't be animated, couldn't be shot in live action, it could only be done in animation, and or it was just something that was a little unusual. It's hard to put my finger on that, but it could have been something quite simple. I had seen reels in the past where perhaps somebody had had a little bit of industry experience and they'd gone in, they'd been given, say, as a junior, they'd be given something that appears to be a very simple task. But you could see they'd put it on their reel, and it isn't something that's like a showpiece or a piece of animation, but it was very well executed. You could see it fit in and it was really well done. I mean, something very simple. So again, that gives you some kind of interest in it. Just makes you think, okay, this person is, again, they've put it, despite being given a relatively very simple task, even though they've already proven that they're very good animators, they've taken that on board and put everything they can into it. And then consequently, that animator was invited to an interview, and I talked about that, and I found out that this animator had put a huge amount of research and thought into this very simple little piece of action, which obviously would have been hugely appreciated by the animation supervisors, the producers, the director, everybody, and it would have been accepted. And that's what the difference was. It was like this, again, what it showed, which I've talked about previously, is this passion and attention to detail and why you're doing something, which is hugely important. Every step of you that you take in animation, um, as in any art form, visual art form, performance, right, whatever, um, should be there for a reason. Every step, everything you do has to have a reason. Otherwise, it just becomes decoration or
Right.
superfluous to what you're trying to
I'd
get
like to
across.
like
So it's difficult to sort of like put your sorry, Anthony, I'm interrupting.
well, I'd like to dwell on that for a minute.
Yeah.
What would be something that an indicator of someone who was animating something that they didn't think that you don't think they were thinking of the reason why it was happening?
That's a tough one because it's one of those things when you're looking at animation and it's kind of an instinctive thing. It's very difficult. It's one of those instinctive things. You're looking at
Can I have a
something.
hack at it? Because I think I know.
Cut it? What?
Can
You
I
want
have
to
a
have a
hack
crack?
at?
Absolutely go for it. Tell
I
me.
personally, I think it's when people are being derivative. It's like, oh, they like animation, they're fans, and then they replicate these little antics or ticks or things they see all the time. And it could
Yeah.
be either anime or it could be American style. And it's like, why is your character doing that thing? It just feels so fucking pointless.
Well, absolutely. No, I remember seeing that in a lot of things. There was some, I'm not going to mention any productions or names, but there was a moment when a very accomplished, very talented supervisor had done a particular piece of acting. It was beautiful, and this animator is renowned for being like a master. And then all of a sudden, and it was recognized. Wow, that's amazing! You've maybe given that character some real character and life. Then everybody started doing it, and it
Mm,
was just like every character you saw seemed to have that same like you're saying, a little facial tick or something that
yeah.
no, that was specific to that character. That's why it worked.
Right, right. One thing I thought was cool, or at least back in the day, is Wallace and Gromit. I don't know if this is a British thing. You could tell me, but I like where the characters do this, like like kind of angsty.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool because I had never seen that before, but
yeah,
I felt I know what he means.
yeah.
Like I understand this character. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, it's the excitement.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if British people do that hand gesture. Or if it, well, because there's, you were talking about the thing that animation does, but isn't in reality. And one of the things is conveying an emotion through an action that may feel like it's right, but then
Yeah.
it may not actually be done in real life. And I know that sounds weird because they say, oh, don't you want to reflect real life? And like, yes, but I want to communicate emotion to my audience. There'll be something like person behind opens the door and the character's eyes like shift over. It's like the character looking behind their head. Like, but there's a cool like type of distortion of reality that I like. And I
Yeah.
think like he captured something with their little hand things and if people do it now, it's just derivative, but
But
it's
that's why I still, and I'm sure you do as well. It's like, and I know you do that, is you encourage people to shoot live action, shoot some acting themselves. And
yeah,
yeah, they may not
unfortunately,
be great actors, but studying that again, and I would recommend that for students, anybody who's doing a piece of acting, don't rely on what you can get from a movie and I mean, especially in movies, because the shot, you don't see the whole body. You just see your portion of their body. They'll only have a wide shot if it's an action scene of some kind, mostly. So, and as you just said, they're unlikely, unless they're trying to emulate an actor and like do an impersonation, they're more likely to do something much more personal in their reaction to something.
right,
And if they can get used to doing that rather than be very self-conscious about it, and be trying to be natural, there'll be something in there that'll give it some originality. And as you said, you'll watch it and it won't look derivative. It'll look natural from that person or something that you've never seen before. And that's a really tough thing to kind of get established in your work, in your animation, any kind of art. It's getting something that somebody has not seen before, and it makes them, oh, this is interesting. I've not seen that before, And because that's one of the main things a reel has to do. It has to spark some interest. You can imagine that. I mean, I went through like dozens and dozens of reels, and some of them were just rejected out of hand because they just weren't suitable. Not because the work was bad; it was just you could see it just wasn't going to be suitable for what we were aiming for. But again, the industry expects certain things. I'm getting off track again. If it was like if it was a VFX studio, which obviously I was involved in at the time and trying to hire, so I would see all of those sort of like 11 seconds, 15-second animation club things where you get some dramatic scene from a movie into characters acting,
Yeah.
and again, being quite derivative in the way they react and do things. But then, again, that proves a certain thing. But then what is recommended for a VFX studio or anything like is a creature animation.
Hmm.
And again, follow some live action because they can't mocap, they can to a degree, animals, depending. If you've got a well-trained dog, yes, you can do that. You try and mocap a cat and try and get a cat to act, and it's just not going to happen. Wild animals, but then again, so you use, there's a massive amount of footage out there that you can use to actually do a little piece of animation to show that, yes, I understand how quadrupeds move. A bird is difficult because trying to get a bird rig, functional one, was probably very difficult. Unless it's just, a bird rig that has very simple geometry. Yes, you could use that. Yes. And that would be a good thing because birds, anything that flies, quadrupeds, animals in general, would be a good thing to have on your reel. Insects,
Okay.
Chinese, I mean, like creatures.
And this is for VFX kind of stuff.
Because, we end up, in a lot of movies, we ended up using, especially in, movies like the Alien movies, I found that a good reference was to use insect reference for movement, creepy movement. And again, for any monsters, it's good to try and use something like that. You
Which
think about
alien? Which alien?
it was Alien.
Oh, that's what I was asking. Like, it was an actual like the based off the Ridley Scott stuff. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, you use that reference and it's being invented with the reference too. Like I said, I use, you'd go in and look, okay, this has got to look like it's got to be a spooky, creepy way of moving.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look at insects and see how, having something like that on your reel, like something that is not, basically, that's what, VFX, again, if you look into VFX, what do VFX do? They do like creature animation, if it's an animation thing. They'll do body doubles. So again, body doubles is good. But then again, you can have a body double that still acts and moves around. But if you got a body double that has to, you need a character that's going to fall 300 feet from a building, they're not going to shoot that. And it's good if you can actually animate something. Not that wouldn't be a very interesting thing to animate. So just having somebody fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, creatures. This is again for VFX.
Okay. I was curious too. When when you guys look at reels on, does I've heard it said that they don't want polish. They want to see the unfettered like acting and the animation. But from
Mm,
what I've experienced is that if you polish your shots, I'm talking not I'm not talking about polishing the animation. I'm talking about the presentation. Like,
mm.
let's say you're doing a 3D animated sequence. That means you put like all of the clothes simulation and hair and light it and make it all look cool, and make like a full finished shot. I've noticed that people who hire respond better to that.
It depends.
But well, I've heard other people say, "Don't do that. I want to just see the animation," but I don't think that. I think like they feel like that's what they believe, but I don't see it put into
I think
action.
it depends on who's looking at the reels too. If you get like a committee, an animator will want to look at the animation. The effects supervisors, leads would want to look at the stuff that's going on in their shot. What
So,
it wouldn't hurt to have something, one item that's polished, perhaps, because what it does is demonstrates an ability and knowledge of all the disciplines, which
okay.
again is very important because I found I lacked that because I'd spent my whole career specializing in animation from 2D into 3D. So I wasn't that well, understanding the other disciplines, but has something that, the learning curve, I had to sort of learn how that
Hmm.
worked and fit in. But I'm still by no means an expert at any stretch. My knowledge is pretty rudimentary, but on those terms. But I guess that was something else I wanted to point out or get into if it's real. Having some, yes, and I think that's right. It's having an understanding of the disciplines. If you're going into VFX or something like that, which obviously is very technical, you don't have to be an expert, but I think it's good to have some kind of, or demonstrate some kind of knowledge of how all of those processes work, even if it's a simple rigging. Um, assignment that you've done in college, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have that on your reel, even if you're applying for an animation job, because it shows an understanding. And if you take that further as well, any of those disciplines, you take those further, then that suggests then that you're more interested in that discipline than the actual animation, which again can open doors for you. But as an animation supervisor at the time, I was just looking at the animation. It was nice to see sort of like, polished work, but that could be a distraction from the animation itself.
Okay.
Mm.
And that was 2D stuff,
No, that was 3D stuff. That was
when you were
usually
doing. Oh, okay.
in 2D. I'd never looked at. I mean, if I saw 2D animation on a reel, that was a plus also, because that
Okay.
shows again, it's a different discipline.
Yeah.
And the ability to draw. Obviously, it's not an essential skill to have moving into 3D animation, but if you do draw and you can draw and you want to develop that skill, which I thoroughly encourage any animator to do, regardless of whether they intend to stick in 3D or not, because what going to life drawing or drawing anything makes you study hard, makes
Hmm.
you increases your observation of how things move, the way things are built, and your spatial awareness as well of how things are in space, in 3D space. It helps immensely. I found that moving from 2D into 3D and spending pretty much almost now the majority of my career in 3D animation. And when I go back to do more 2D animation, I start to look at 2D animation. I understand 2D. It makes me better at doing 2D animation, because now I've been working in a 3D world all this time. It makes it easier in some respects for me to sort of like plan out a piece of 2D animation and even draw in 2D, because I've become more aware of um, I become more spatially aware of things, how they move in space, and understand that how they should look. It's hard to put my finger on it, but I've heard this from other 2D animators too, that once they've moved into 3D and then they start going back to either teach 2D animation or actually do more 2D animation, they found that their skills are so much better in being able to actually animate something, and they're less involved perhaps in the actual flat 2D drawing that they're thinking more in 3D terms, I think, while you're drawing. And I think I came across some old notes from when I was at Disney, some book, I can't remember. They made a book, it was called like the Animation Handbook. So I think I've got it around somewhere. And it was basically a bunch of instructions and quotes from a lot of the old Disney animators. And one of them in there says, oh, yeah, it's there. It's just like, think in 3D, animate in 3D, and this was
Interesting.
back in the day. This was like 1950s or something,
Oh,
40s,
wow.
50s. Think in 3 dimensions when you're drawing. So, and it's finally clicked.
Yeah. And it's
So,
very clear when animators don't too, by the way. I never
but
thought of it in terms of that, but it's all in hindsight. I know what you're talking about.
So, so yeah, I mean, again, if you're talking about a reel or a portfolio, I think having those different, as a student, having as many disciplines as you can or examples as you can. I mean, don't just throwing everything in there. It means being quite selective about what you're actually putting in there. And then having some 2D work, some drawing, some painting, anything, sculpture, anything that shows you a creative thinking,
Okay.
inquiring artist. It's like a curiosity for things,
Okay. But you want to lead with what you're looking at for a job in, right? Like,
Pardon?
you want to be clear though too, with your real what you want the job in
Oh,
though.
yes, yes. It would be something that you'd have as a side. You wouldn't necessarily put it on your reel. If you have a portfolio on a website, which is always good,
Okay.
you
Want
would
to be
have,
clear.
yeah, you should have any 2D work that you've done. It's always good to see that. But
Okay.
again, be selective. Get advice from tutors, from somebody's opinion that you respect, that you feel like can give you a good feedback on that.
It has to be someone who's worked in the industry. I see some people delegating advice.
Yeah, I mean, don't ask your mum which is your best painting or drawing.
Well, not just that. I mean, it could just be an artist. Maybe they're good in their own respect, but they're not
But,
working in that
but
field. And it's like,
if you're a student, you should be surrounded by tutors who can actually do this or
it's
help you with it. But the other thing is I wanted to point out was again, it's being very selective of what you put on your reel in terms of your animation and stuff, and any kind of audio dialogue. Try to be as conservative as possible. Do not have anything that's sort of like contentious. Certainly no profanity, because that is just like an absolute no-no. You don't know who's going to be looking at your work.
okay.
Personally,
It's
I
just
don't.
a cuss word.
Pardon?
Just a cuss word. Just don't even have that.
I would
Wow.
say don't, because you don't know who's going to be looking at your word. And having that kind of stuff in your audio, it's like you may find something, yeah, that's funny. It's from a movie, it's from a TV show, whatever, and it's funny in context and all of that. You take that out of context and you stick some animation in it, and it's not funny at all, usually, for the most part. I never
Yeah.
find it funny looking at that. I mean, I'm British. I was born, in the UK, and I very close to the Scottish border, and where swearing is national pastime. It's like part of the language. So it's very hard to like offend me with any kind of
Yeah.
swearing or bad language. And so, and even very violent things. I mean, I worked in a lot of VFX projects where the violence is horrendous, but that's what you do. But don't put as a student, if you're involved in that as an assignment in the studio, yes, put it on your reel. But if as a student, try to avoid that. Don't do that either, because you're the violence in a production, or the language in a production, is always in context. You take that out of context and put it as a as a piece of animation, it's not going to have the same impact. I can guarantee it. There's every likelihood it won't make people laugh, or anything like that. I get a lot of. I see that with students too now. It's like they'll pick a piece of dialogue that they think is hilarious. It doesn't come across as funny for the most part. And that's why when they do that, I try to encourage them to take that out of context and reinvent that piece of dialogue, assuming it doesn't have profanity, to try and make it more of a visual entertaining rather than just a verbal entertainment. You know, and it's like you get, "Oh, I don't know, what do you mean?" So, I try and push them in that direction. What else to say about that, unless you want to chip in. But yeah, even cuss
No,
words.
no, I mean that I think you covered it. Was there any closing thoughts on
On a
on
reel, on the presentation. Is that what you're asking?
I'm sorry?
You mean about a reel or a
Yeah,
portfolio?
yeah, just like anything else.
Well, if we're talking about students, though, then
It could be also people who maybe are already out of school and even punching up. I guess they're still students, but we're all students, I
well,
guess.
it's always just about show your best work. It really is. That's what it's about. The work you're most proud of and your best work, and try and get a contrast or a variation in the work that you present. Even if you're only presenting maybe 2 or 3 pieces of work, animation,
Yeah.
try and make them different. Don't have just the same thing. Just, like two examples of dialogue and acting.
So do like an action scene, a dialogue
Yeah,
scene.
action scenes, a creature. It's definitely a creature.
Okay. Now you say show your best work. That could be misinterpretedly bad. Let's just say
What?
maybe your stuff isn't polished enough, and you're showing the best of your limited ability. How do you go about helping people actualize their full potential, so that the reel is something that can be presentable to a
Oh,
an entity that would hire them?
no, that's down to whoever's hiring. And again, it's instinctive of somebody who's looking at animation. Even if it's rough and it's not a polished presentation, you can see immediately, or I can see pretty much immediately, if something has been done with some integrity and some honesty and real effort has been put into it. It can be rough, but there's something there that will tell you, oh, this person's got a curiosity and interest and integrity and honesty in their work, and not just trying to ape something that they think somebody else wants to see all the time.
Okay,
Or
well,
they just or they just think it's cool, but it's just not.
I understand. So I think that kind of speaks to something that I believe in is if you really try really hard, doesn't
Mm.
mean your portfolio is going to come out great, but it
Oh,
does mean you're going to get better, and you
oh,
can tell.
absolutely.
You can
Yeah.
always tell. And so I think like you just need to keep doing the best you can. Don't ever nobody hires C work in the industry. I mean, well, if you there's some C work in the industry, but usually even in those productions you have to perform at a level because you still have to hit deadlines. So if you see something that looks like crap, like a BoJack Horseman, because the artists working on it aren't necessarily bad artists, they're just working on bad art. They just have to crank out like 10 times the amount of footage. And so you can't ever be somebody, like you said, you can tell um, when there's no heart in it.
Exactly. You can tell if somebody's it doesn't matter what kind of animation it is. It can be really quite experimental, but you can tell that they've actually researched it, whatever they've done, and studied the movement, whatever it is they're making move, and put some real thought into it. It hasn't been sort of like, just be knocked out. You can always tell if somebody's put some real study and interest into what they're doing. It's almost immediate. You can tell that it's working, or the person's got some artistic integrity, desire to improve. And
Right.
especially when you get feedback as a student, as an instructor, and then when you get that positive response from them, when you're actually trying to instruct and help and guide, as opposed to a reluctance because they're convinced that what they're doing is what's expected. It's convinced it's right when it isn't.
Awesome. I think we'll end it there. That's all. Thank you, Philip.
Oh, you are.
I think that'll be really helpful.
So just
I
edit all of the ums and ahs.
Yeah, all of it, all the little pieces, all the breadcrumbs help. They add up. I can, having grown up in the era of the podcast. Well, not growing up in it, but I was graduating about the time that it was kind of sort of still in its infancy. But there were some people putting out content that really helped me find information
Yeah,
and grow as an artist. And so, like, it does all add up. So I
yeah,
do
absolutely.
appreciate you, and I think people will appreciate this.
Very, very well.